Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sean Brodrick. He's a natural resource analyst at UncommonWisdomDaily.com. Welcome back to the show, Sean.
Thanks for having me on.
Some really interesting action happening with gold and silver. You have a chart on it. Where can people find the chart, and what will they find on that chart when they do find it?
They can look at king1i.blogspot.com. 1 is the numeral 1. And what I have is a chart. It's from Bloomberg, and it shows the world's ETF holdings of silver and gold. And even though the price of gold pulled back last week, people were adding to gold through ETFs quite a bit. In fact, gold ETFs have added 24 metric tons just so far this month, and they've added 110 tons so far this year. That shows you the difference between paper gold and physical gold. Paper gold gets pushed around by all the speculators and the people who are really trying to break you in the market. Physical gold shows what's really happening, and what's really happening is they are accumulating it.
Now, is this just the Chinese and Russian governments doing what they've always done, or is the average investor now, the individual person, saying, the gold portfolio needs to be stocked up because we don't trust the stock market?
Well, this is what's happening in the world's gold ETF. So that's not the central banks or anything. That can be large investors. It can be retail investors. But obviously, people think that gold and silver are cheap at current prices, and they're adding to it. Now, I prefer to buy the actual physical that I can store. But for many investors, they're okay with the GLD and the other gold ETFs because that gives them just something in their portfolio that they can say, I own physical gold. Large funds use it that way, for example, just to say that they have some gold exposure. And so that's what we're seeing ramp up. We've seen it ramp up this year, and now we're really seeing it start to happen in June. This all is leading into the big Fed meeting on the 13th and the 14th. Now, what we saw happen the last 3 times that the Fed raised interest rates was we saw gold take off after that happened, and miners took off a couple days before. Assuming that the Fed is going to raise rates this time around by another quarter point, are we going to see the same thing? I think the bet the market is making is that, yes, we will see that. Now, you can go back and forth about, well, this is what people anticipate, so it won't happen, and all that stuff, but there's a real psychological reason for it that we see all the time, which is that people see a rate coming, so they sell, people see a rate hike coming, so they sell gold off going into that. Once that rate hike happens, that kind of lifts a weight off them, they feel free to act, and the way they act is to actually purchase more gold only after the rate hike happens. Not only do they purchase it physically, they purchase the paper gold as well.
Now, can you explain to some people who don't know the difference between paper and physical?
Sure. Physical is, actual physical gold, and in this case what the chart is representing is physical gold which is held by the world's ETFs. They actually have to have it in a vault somewhere. Paper gold is, just the contracts that are written on the big exchanges, and they can pretty much write what they want, right? So you can write paper, you can't write physical. So that's the real difference.
And if there is a financial crisis, how good is your paper gold?
Well, that's the question. That's one reason why I prefer to own the physical. Now, will there be a financial crisis? I don't know. I don't think, you see people coming out making these strong pronouncements about this and that is going to happen. They don't know any more than anyone else, but it's the uncertainty That's what we're hedging against. That's why you're seeing people add more to their funds, because they don't know either, and they just want to be secure just in case worst comes to worst. Now, we've seen the people that President Trump has recommended for the Fed. One of them is getting a few sideways eyeballs on like Wall Street, because he's a guy with some very interesting theories. I don't know if he alone could destabilize things, but if, say, he were to replace Janet Yellen, it would make for a very interesting market. And that's what the market has to price in, is that there could be more uncertainty by a change like that. And especially because President Trump just came out and said that Janet Yellen has his full confidence. I figure she's on the short timer list at this point. So,
ask James Comey about that.
Huh?
I said the day before James Comey was fired, Trump was asked, "Oh, we have full confidence in the director of the FBI."
Right, exactly. And so that's why I'm thinking that her goose is probably cooked soon. And so the market has to prepare for those kinds of things. Then we just saw the election results in Britain, which did not surprise me, and I've been writing about that. You know, you can see the hunger in the nations around the world. People want change. They really feel they're being screwed by the current system, and they really are hungry for change. And so that's why you're seeing big upsets like that, is because, people are just willing to vote for anything if they think that it might change them from the course they're on, because they don't like the course they're on.
And it does send the message that the status quo is not good enough.
Right. That's because the status quo only works for the elites. It's not working for the regular people, and so that's why we're seeing this happen. And that's why I think down the road, people will look at the current price of gold as a tremendous buying opportunity that, maybe they took some advantage of, but once it really goes higher, you never really bought enough, did you? So that's the way I think that will play out. And in the meantime, miners are moving ahead of the metal. I mean, we actually saw some good movement, at least in the ones that I recommend, on Monday. Not all of them went up, there were miners and explorers and developers that did not go up, but more went up than went down. And then Tuesday morning, they tried to sell them off, and here they come charging back again. Why is that? Because people are positioning for what they think will happen with the Fed. Now, it doesn't have to play out that way. It's all an anticipation game. But, if it follows the pattern that it followed in the past, we will see the metals move higher after the Fed makes its announcement.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
I'm Brian Fowler, President of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead-zinc-silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineered gold mine in the Atlan District of Northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Sean Brodrick. Sean, the Canadian dollar gained almost 1 cent in one day. That's a big move in currency terms. What's happening with the good old loonie?
Well, it turns out that you folks up in Canada don't need any more quantitative easing. That's what's happening. And so that means, that's a huge lift for the Canadian dollar. And well-deserved, I might say. Your economy's ticking along. There's no reason that currency shouldn't be higher. I've been pounding the desk about the fact that I think things are on a discount up in Canada, and now we're finally seeing it reflected. It'll make it harder on me when I come to visit, because I like when your currency is cheap. Maybe it won't be that way for long, but the move in it recently is very nice indeed. And now I'm sure that there were way too many bets on one side. So maybe it will top out rather quickly. It is up against overhead resistance as we speak. That said, the volume on this move is very strong, and I would not be surprised to see the loonie go higher.
And it was nice to see it actually go higher without it really being connected to the price of oil for once.
Yes, that was a nice change too, wasn't it? But again, it's an expectations game, because obviously the message from your central bank is that things are improving economically, and so I think that we'll see that optimism priced in. It won't happen immediately; it'll be gradual, but that just points to things going higher over the next weeks and maybe months.
Well, the Bank of Canada just came out with a statement that was a lot more bullish than it has been in the past. Is that also a factor?
That's what I was talking about,
yes.
Yeah. I have been pounding the table about the fact that the gold miners, which are in Canada, priced in the loonie, have been on sale for months now. And I've been urging people to actually pick them up there because the price will go higher. And so I think we'll probably see that too.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after this.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're speaking with Sean Brodrick. Sean, natural gas has dropped below $3. Is this just a seasonal play, or is this something that natural gas investors should keep an eye on?
Well, again, we come to an expectations game, and one thing that I have to tell you is that the hopes for an El Nino are fading. And so El Nino can bring climate extremes to the southern U.S., and it actually kind of splits the continent. Now, it all gets down to weather. We can talk about why, hot water in the Pacific changes the global weather patterns and like all this stuff. This has been going on forever. We get the oscillation between El Nino, La Nina, but El Nino was starting to build up. We were looking forward to that happening, and then it just kind of fell apart. So people are changing their bets there. And also, one thing that is really weighing on the price of natural gas, I actually probably should have mentioned this first, is that we are seeing U.S. oil production climb quite a bit. But a lot of natural gas comes as a byproduct of oil, right? So as the U.S. produces more oil, of course there's going to be more natural gas produced. And they can only export so much of it so quickly. And so that's why we're seeing the price of natural gas roll over. Those two things, more supply and what's happening with the global weather patterns. It's a 1-2 thing. That said, there is some strong support once we get down to, say, 280. I don't think it'll go as low as 270, but you never know. And so once that happens, that'll be a good time to look at those stocks and pick up the ones that are really undervalued then.
What do you say about these environmental people who have now classified natural gas as just as evil as crude oil? It's a fossil fuel, so obviously it's bad for the planet.
Well, there's no pleasing some people. I mean, they're always angry about something. I know because I talk to people like that on the internet all day long. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to get anywhere with their complaints at this point, so I'm not really worried about them. I would be keeping my eye on the Middle East, what's going down there, where right now Saudi Arabia is saying that Qatar is like a bad person, and like I thought that would kind of blow over, but it's not blowing over nearly as fast as I thought it might. I mean, these are OPEC members. You would think they would work things out faster than that because they depend on each other. But it does not seem to be blowing over really, and we know Qatar's a big natural gas exporter. Will they have problems exporting natural gas as these like sanctions from Saudi Arabia start to hit? I don't know. that'll be very, very interesting to see what's going on. One other thing to watch would be Iraq, which, they always seem to shoot themselves in the foot and, stumble into a hole. And they're having problems with their oil exports. I expect with their natural gas exports, too, they've kind of hit a peak, simply because that system is so inefficient they can't really export anymore unless it becomes more efficient at this point, and God knows when that's going to happen. So there are some limits to what can be exported around the world. Don't expect prices to be a one-way street. Look at the price of oil. It still seems to be range-bound in that same range that it's been for most of the year. And there are companies that can make money at these prices, and those are the ones that I'm steering my subscribers toward.
And of course, a lot of people will blame low oil prices on electric cars. Electric cars make up less than 1% of the vehicles driven on the road, so they're not a big factor.
Minuscule, yes.
Yeah. So something else is driving down oil prices.
Yeah, well, it's just too much supply. I mean, that's really it. Now, we have seen them extend the cuts that OPEC and the non-OPEC member states that were party to that agreement led by Russia agreed to. And that put some support under the price of oil for a bit. But now people are starting to make projections and say, North America, not just the U.S., but also Canada, those guys really want to produce. And Nigeria seems to be getting over its problems. And Libya is really coming online and all this stuff. And so people are expecting more supply. Now, Saudi Arabia was just making more noises about, we will cut again. And I think they're willing to shoulder the burden simply because they need higher prices. Can they cut fast enough to take enough off the market that it makes up for the new supply coming on? All I know is that the shale oil companies must be doing little jigs in their office every time Saudi Arabia says this, because it's more money for them. And again, I think I mentioned this last time we talked. There are select exploration and production companies in, say, the Permian and Eagle Ford and stuff like that are really well positioned for this because they're so darned efficient. And so, as the Saudis pull oil and gas off the market, that's really going to be an opportunity for them, and one that they aren't going to waste, I don't think. And so there could be some good times ahead for those companies. It's not really being reflected in the price. Heck, it's not even being reflected in the prices of the oil services company, and yet the rig count keeps going up. It's up 124% over what it was a year ago. So that some people are getting work, and we kind of know which companies it is, but if you look at their prices, they're near, 52-week lows, even though these companies come out and say, we're raising our prices just because we can, and we really need to anyway, and all this stuff. And so there's really a kind of disconnect in the market. I'm not saying everything's going to go higher, but I am saying that there's some real opportunities in the energy sector that people should be looking at.
Now, on to the business of marijuana. It's not just for the bad guys anymore. You have 4 states where it's legal. Canada's about to legalize it, not this Canada Day, but next Canada Day, a year from now. Now are people taking this as a real serious industry and something that they should invest in?
Yes, and I was just at the Fort Lauderdale Southeast Cannabis Conference and Expo, and the Friday track there was all about investing, and they had a nice gentleman from Canada who's actually part of a fund that's built 3 cannabis companies. They're on their 3rd right now. And he was talking about what they're doing. And because they had a U.S. hedge fund investor, and what he and his clients have been doing is investing in Canada. But what the guy from Canada is doing, which surprised me, but it probably shouldn't, is that they have built their own fund, and they're turning around and they're buying companies in the U.S. And that's because they see the U.S. market as incredibly fragmented, and so they're looking for opportunities down in the U.S. because we keep hearing that, the companies down here are really overvalued, and some certainly are. But these folks from Canada who have made a lot of money in cannabis, believe that there are opportunities in the U.S. right now because the market is so fragmented. And when you look at states like California coming online, which would be the world's sixth biggest economy if it was an independent nation, so that's moving toward legalization. In Nevada, other places, Florida's just taking baby steps toward like loosening up medical marijuana, but the potential is there in the future anyway. So that's where the people from Canada are putting their money to work. They're going to be expanding into the U.S. So that makes for a fascinating dichotomy because you have people from the U.S. investing in Canada, and then you have people from Canada seeing the opportunities in the U.S. I guess the grass is always greener on the other side of the border is really what I'm saying there. But this really opens the doors to some very interesting cross-border opportunities.
And as I was explaining to a friend here, I said, don't forget, just 1% penetration into the U.S. market is 3.3 million. Whereas in Canada, right, that's an entire province, and we only have 36 million people. So that would be an incredible amount of people in Canada. But in the U.S., you just have to find a niche market, and you can make a very comfortable living off it.
Right, and I was hearing people talk about niche markets all weekend long. One thing that I found interesting from the point of view of the gentleman from Canada is that he said that the Canadian government purposely keeps just a little less supply than there is demand. So it's always in slight undersupply, simply because they don't want this stuff building up in anyone's warehouse, because then it would find its way to the illegal or the gray market, right? And so his question that he was asking is, what happens when we legalize? There's no way to possibly grow enough marijuana fast enough to hit that when it actually happens. So what he was projecting, and I think he could be right, is that the price of marijuana in Canada, which is already artificially supported by the government, by the restrictions that it has in place, could really take off when legalization comes along. Now, it won't last, because more growers will come into the market and stuff like that. But I think that ahead of that, we could see investors buying into stocks up there, probably those U.S. investors that I was talking about, because they're anticipating that when legalization comes along, Canadian pot companies could have a tremendous year. Like I said, won't last forever, but it really could be tremendous for a while. And so that's a very interesting opportunity as well.
Sean, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks very much. It's always great.
My guest has been Sean Brodrick from UncommonWisdomDaily.com, and also check out his website, Red Hot Resource Millionaire. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or guests can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.